A poll site might have up to 3 different types of accessibility clerks on Election Day.
The most common are the accessibility clerks, whose job is to make sure that voters can get through doorways that are difficult to enter independently.
Accessibility clerks are also needed at some poll sites to operate elevators and direct voters to the voting area.
And some sites have areas with low headroom or hard objects protruding from walls that voters might hit if they can't see them. In these locations, you'll be placing warning cones that help voters avoid the problems. But if the warning cone would narrow the accessible route to less than 32 inches wide, the schematic will indicate that an accessibility clerk will be stationed there to warn voters to watch their heads as they pass.
But before we talk about those roles in more detail, let's talk about what you'll need to do at the beginning of the day, before the polls open. First, post all outdoor signage as shown on the schematic before the polls open. The schematic is the drawing that looks like a site plan. You can find it in the coordinator's supply envelope. If for some reason you find that you don't have all the signs you need, call the borough office to get the extra signs sent over. It will also be your responsibility at the end of the day, once the polls have closed, to pack up these things and return them back into the outside signage bag. For more information about which signs to post, as well as where and how to post them, study the schematic. It shows where all the outside signs are to be posted. You'll also want to watch the BOE video about accessibility and directional signs.
Next, you'll need to ensure that the outside entrance door is accessible to all voters. There are many problems that make doors inaccessible for voters with a disability. Sometimes entrance doors are too difficult to open. This might be because the door is too heavy or because it doesn't have the right kind of hardware. Sometimes doors close so fast and hard that they could knock someone down. Sometimes there is not enough space for someone using a wheelchair, scooter, or walker to be able to approach the door, open it, and then get through it. Some buildings have small entrance vestibules that force wheelchair users to operate 2 doors at the same time. That makes independent entry impossible, too. And when the space outside the door isn't level, that can also cause problems. You can imagine how hard it would be to try and open a door when your wheelchair keeps rolling away from it. On Election Day, the poll site coordinator will station an accessibility clerk at every door that is too difficult to open to ensure that all voters can easily enter and cast their votes. When you prop a door open, make sure that you leave enough space for voters using wheelchairs, scooters, and walkers to get through the opening easily. Propping the door open with something bulky like a trash can doesn't work because it will block the path through the doorway so that people using wheelchairs, scooters, and walkers can't enter without making a big scene. If the entrance is a narrow pair of double doors and you are only able to prop one of the doors open, be sure to check that the resulting opening is wide enough to enter. That will take at least 32 inches of clear width. If you can't safely prop both doors open, and the open width of that single door is less than 32 inches, prop just one of the doors open, and an accessibility clerk, like you, will be stationed there to help open that second door when someone needs the extra width to get through.
If propping the door open is not an option, an accessibility clerk will need to be stationed just inside or outside of the door. If there is a window in or near the door, the clerk can sit just inside the door in a chair placed near that window where they can keep an eye on voters as they arrive. If you're that clerk, make sure that you can see all approaching voters, including voters who are little people or who use wheelchairs. Remember, you are stationed at that door because without your help, some voters with disabilities will be unable to enter the building. If the door can't be safely propped open and there is no window, or only a small one, you'll be instructed to install a doorbell where it's shown on the schematic. If you have to do that, there are a few guidelines you must follow to make sure it's usable by the people who need it. When installing a doorbell, make sure that there are no obstructions between the voter and the doorbell button. Also, the button should not be installed higher than 48 inches off the ground, though a height of about 36 inches is preferred. You'll want to try to find a place for the doorbell button that is close to the door and has a level, clear space on the floor or ground where the wheelchair user can stop to operate the doorbell. This requires an open space that is at least 30 inches wide by 48 inches long. If room is available, a slightly larger space, say 36 inches by 60 inches, will allow scooter and large power wheelchairs to use them too. It's best to center the button on the long side of that open space, preferably right next to the clear floor space, but generally no more than 10 inches away. That open space also has to be in a location where the voter can press the doorbell and wait for the door to open without it hitting them as it swings past. Many wheelchair users can't reach beyond their toes, so don't mount the button on a recessed part of a wall, window, or column if the only way to reach it is over the end of the open space. Now that we've covered your preparation before the start of the day, let's talk about your responsibilities throughout the day. At some poll sites, accessibility clerks will be assigned to operate inaccessible elevators. Just getting the voter to the correct floor may not be enough to make their voting experience easy. If it's not obvious, you'll also need to make sure that they know which way to go once they exit the elevator. And finally, some sites will need an accessibility clerk posted at the entrance or exit too. If so, the poll site coordinator will assign them.